Hello, my name is Jenny, and I am a student of English literature. Today, I want to share my life story in London, particularly about my fantastic teacher. It was a beautiful summer day when I found myself traveling on a train. Two women sat opposite me, engaged in conversation in English. Although I didn't understand much, as a beginner in English, I mustered my courage and spoke a few basic words. To my delight, the women understood me, which filled me with happiness. I told them I wanted to learn English, and they informed me that they were from England, returning home from a conference. Our conversation lasted about 10 minutes, and when my station arrived, I bid them farewell. The women kindly gave me their address and phone number, inviting me to visit them in England. After that encounter, I dedicated myself to improving my English every day by translating texts and watching English films. After 6 months, my English had improved significantly, but my desire to learn more remained. Thus, I decided to go to London to study English. Upon my arrival, I enrolled in a school, and my first lesson was scheduled for Monday. In class, I met my teacher and fellow students. My teacher was a young, exceptional lady who was both kind and humble. After we introduced ourselves, the lesson commenced. The teacher inquired about our general knowledge of the language. She explained that she had a very effective teaching method that was quite simple. She emphasized that we wouldn't need to rely on textbooks. Instead, we would use English in our daily lives. This approach proved to be highly effective for me, as I found textbooks somewhat confusing. Next, we discussed the significance of language when learning something new. Our teacher explained that language serves both as a purpose and a means of communication. We need languages to express our ideas and feelings. So the best way to learn a new language is to use it to communicate with others. In our course, we would engage in extensive speaking and using English. Many students attempt to memorize new words and study grammar rules, but neglect speaking practice. They learn about the language without actually using it. While it is essential to learn new words and grammar, daily practice is crucial. In this course, I aim to demonstrate a simple and effective method for learning vocabulary and grammar. I appreciated what our teacher conveyed. The lesson continued as we discussed our hobbies and what we enjoyed doing in our free time, often in pairs or with our teacher. I thoroughly enjoyed attending classes and felt genuinely happy. This learning system proved to be incredibly effective for me. Chapter 2. How I Learned Vocabulary. On Tuesday, I returned to school, and one of the students posed an interesting question. What is the best way to learn new words? Our teacher explained that there are many strategies to learn new vocabulary. She shared that, statistically, reading is the most effective method for acquiring new words. People who read learn new vocabulary in their language twice as fast as those who do not. It is beneficial to read for at least 30 minutes every day. The teacher then outlined how to maximize the benefits of reading. First, it is essential to choose a book or text that interests you. Enjoying what you read is crucial, whether it's a captivating story, fiction, or nonfiction, depending on your preferences. Avoid texts that do not engage you, as they can be quite frustrating. When you encounter a word you do not understand, look it up in a dictionary to grasp its meaning, which will enhance your comprehension of the text. You do not need to write the word down. It will naturally stick in your mind. Each time you see that word again, you will remember its meaning. Reading also offers another significant advantage. You learn new words and how they connect with other words in a sentence, seeing the correct relationships between them. This method of learning new vocabulary is very effective. Try it, and you will see how quickly you can acquire new words. We continued the lesson by discussing the job market in England and the best job opportunities for students. This was particularly important to me because I wanted to find a job during my spare time after school. I asked other students if they knew where I could find employment, and they advised me to visit a job center. The job center offers many positions, especially for students, which was great news for me. After my school day ended, I went to the job center. Unsure about what job I could do, I asked the lady there what the best job for a student would be. She informed me that they had several good options, such as being a cleaner or a waitress in a cafe. I mentioned my lack of experience, but she assured me that my English was sufficient for cafe work. The training would not be difficult, and I would have more opportunities to speak English than if I worked as a cleaner. She told me I could start on Thursday, and I felt thrilled to have a job where I could practice my English. On Wednesday, I returned to school. There was one student in the class who was quieter than the others. He was from South Korea. When our teacher asked if we had any questions, he raised his hand and expressed his struggle with pronunciation. He knew his pronunciation wasn't good, but didn't know how to improve it. He mentioned that he read and watched many English films, understanding them well, but he wanted to enhance his speaking skills. He asked if there was anything he could do to improve his pronunciation. When the teacher heard this, she said she would share some techniques to help everyone with their pronunciation. First, she explained why students often struggle with pronunciation. Speaking requires movement of the mouth and the use of mouth muscles. The issue arises when students use these muscles in the same way they do for their native language, resulting in different pronunciations from native speakers. This happens to many learners. While it's not a significant problem, since people generally understand you, you can work on improving your pronunciation with a technique called shadowing. This technique is straightforward. You simply copy the sounds you hear. Children learn their first language by mimicking their parents repeatedly. To improve your English pronunciation, you can do the same. Find audio or video recordings at a manageable speed that you can understand, listen, and then mimic what you hear. Our teacher went to YouTube and searched for videos demonstrating the shadowing technique. We watched a video and then practiced shadowing for about 3 minutes. The teacher also mentioned that shadowing is beneficial when preparing for an English presentation, allowing you to practice pronunciation effectively. You can find a quiet place and shadow for about 10 minutes, which will significantly help improve your pronunciation during presentations. I found this very interesting, as I hadn't heard of this technique before. After class, I visited the school reception and asked if there were any sports activities available. I wanted to engage in some sports while in England. The receptionist informed me that there was a table tennis team and a football team, with football training scheduled for 5 p.m. that day. I was thrilled because sports are very important to me. I attended the football team's training and met many players from different countries, including Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I enjoyed the training and felt very happy that my time in England began so well. I have a great teacher, new friends from the football team, and I'm also starting my job tomorrow. On Thursday, I returned to school. We had a new student in our class named Elizabeth, who is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asked Elizabeth some questions, as she had visited our class a year ago for a 2-week beginner course during the summer. Elizabeth spoke beautifully, with excellent pronunciation and fluency. My teacher was delighted and told her that her school in Italy must be very good. Elizabeth replied that she doesn't attend any school. She learns English at home. She utilizes techniques she learned from our teacher, including a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. She tries to think more in English than in Italian, which has greatly helped her. Our teacher appreciated Elizabeth's hard work and was very pleased to hear her words. I found it all very interesting. I already knew about reading and shadowing, but I was unfamiliar with the concept of thinking aloud. So I asked our teacher what it was. She explained that it's a very effective technique that requires strong motivation to learn English. While some people might find it a bit odd, starting to think aloud can quickly improve your English. I expressed my strong motivation and said I didn't mind if the technique seemed unusual. I wanted to learn it if it helped. The teacher explained that it's quite simple. You typically think in your native language throughout the day. Now you can start thinking in English, and when you do, you can say aloud what you think. That's all there is to it. I found it straightforward. Our teacher suggested asking Elizabeth about her experience with thinking aloud, and she was happy to share. Elizabeth mentioned that when she began using this technique, it was challenging. She started with very simple sentences, such as "I can speak English." "It's good that I can speak English, and I want to improve." Although these sentences were simple, she initially struggled to express herself in English, as her thoughts in Italian were often long and complicated. She needed to simplify her thinking in English. Over time, it became normal for her to think in English. Interestingly, she met a man from Australia while he was on holiday in Italy. Even though she was still a beginner, they started conversing in English. She realized she could speak with him without any problems. Her sentences were simple and short, but she was able to communicate effectively without translating from Italian to English in her head. After meeting the Australian man, she began to use thinking aloud more frequently, and this technique significantly helped her speaking skills. She still practices it every day. Our teacher thanked Elizabeth for sharing her experience with thinking aloud. I also wanted to use this technique to improve my speaking. When you want to speak English fluently, think aloud. I'd like to offer you an extra piece of advice. When learning English, read, listen, think, and speak. Dedicate 40 minutes each day to each activity. You can read, listen, and practice shadowing with basic English stories.